What?
I was in charge. I had no idea.
Thanks, Heidi.
Thank you.
I was like, someone's logged into the right account.
Okie dokie. All right, share my screen and we're off. So tonight is our first legislative advocacy training, actually. What we're going to cover tonight is how a bill becomes a law. We'll go over how to schedule and hold a virtual lobby visit with your legislator, how to submit oral and written testimony on a bill as well. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how a bill becomes a law. So I'm actually going to open up this. I can't not do this without seeing people. It makes me feel weird, like I'm talking to myself.
We're here.
Okay, thank you. You're here with me. Okay. So Washington State's legislature is a two houses or two chamber, also known as bicameral legislature, which is represented up through the Senate and the House. We run on a 2-year cycle, which is a biennium. We have a regular session, and when we also have extraordinary or special sessions, which they're most commonly known as. Special sessions can be, actually we'll cover that in a second though too. So our odd year sessions are 60 days, so it's a short session. Even-yeared sessions are 60 days. Odd year sessions are 105 days. I said that completely backwards. So this year it'll be a short session, which will begin on January 10th and it'll end on March 10th. We have 49 legislative districts. Each district has 1 senator, which serves a term of 4 years, and 2 representatives, and they serve terms of 2 years. Our regular sessions will always begin on the second Monday in January each year, and that's mandated through the state constitution and through our RCWs. So with that, there can be any number of actually special sessions within the 2-year cycle. They can last no more than 30 days, and they have to be convened by a proclamation of the governor as well. They can be. 2017 was the longest legislative session we ever had, which ended up being like 195 days. So as we jump on into how does a bill become a law? Well, the first thing that happens when a bill in the process of becoming a law is that it's going to be introduced on the floor and also get referral to committee. This is referred to as like the bill's first reading. So leadership determines which committees. Oh yeah.
Eggs and sausage for dinner. You can make whatever you want. I already ate. Okay.
So leadership determines which committee bills will be referred, usually determined by the bill's subject matter. Some of you would have received should have received a packet of materials, and that gives you a complete list of like standing committees that are always in the House and within the Senate. And when I say leadership, it's basically whoever is in the majority in leadership of the House or the Senate. Bills that require an appropriation or that raise revenue, in other words, have to go through also a fiscal committee, which is also discussed in the materials that you were provided. Molly, I can't see you. Let me know if we're getting any questions or anything in the chat, or I need to slow down or anything.
You're doing great.
Okay. So committees hold 3 types of meetings. There's work sessions where issues are determined and reviewed. They have public hearings where testimony from interested parties like you and I, or organizations or other stakeholders is taken. And then they have executive sessions. In executive sessions, committees decide how it will report the bill to the whole House. There's other things that can be discussed in executive session. The bill report will include like the legislative history of the bill, the background on the issue. So like, why does somebody want this to be a law? Like what happened? A summary of the legislation, the names of who testified on the bill, and a summary of the testimony of like for and against the bill. So like in this step, the committee report is read, they read it in open session of the House or the Senate, and then bill will be referred on to Rules Committee. Sometimes this process isn't just as quick as just me saying like, oh, they're just going to read it and then they move it on to the Rules Committee. It can take some time, as some of you may know, just through the legislative process. So the Rules Committee can then either place the bill on the second reading of the calendar for debate in front of the entire body, or they can take no action. Keep in mind too, that not every bill gets scheduled for a hearing. So that's sometimes where you'll see legislation come up, but it's never really granted a hearing. So nobody ever gets to testify on it, or it just never really goes anywhere. So also too, when the bill moves to the opposite side of the House also prepares a bill report. So a final bill that has finally passed the legislature will have a House report, a Senate, and a final bill report. So community actions and rules. So bills are reported on in three ways. There's either going to be like a do pass, which is pass the bill as it is. There's a do pass as an amendment, where it's passed, but it's amended by the committee in some sort of way, or they make some sort of changes. They have a do pass substitute, where committee offers different versions to replace the original bill. So members on like the prevailing side sign the majority report, and then members who disagree will sign the minority report. And then sometimes not all bills will have a minority report though. Sometimes they won't even report that. It'll just be left alone and they won't even do anything. Finally, once it gets to the Rules Committee, the Rules Committee is actually made up of both parties. Each member on the committee gets to select 2 or 3 bills to move on to the next step in the process. So let me go back. So the rules review, members review the bills and decide whether or not to move on to the next step. Rules consideration, which is basically the version in the House, and rules green, which is the version in the Senate, is sometimes bills skip this step and they just go to the calendar for a second reading. So, and the final step would be the calendar for House, and then bill reports books. So committee decides which bills will be scheduled for the second reading, each one of those 2 types of committees. So at the second reading though on a bill, it's subject to a debate and amendment before being placed on the third reading. And third reading and for the calendar of final passage. So like this chamber will discuss the merits of like the legislation. Members will offer their amendments. If amended in committee or on the floor in the first House, it's ordered engrossed. And engrossing a bill means incorporating the amendments into the body of the bill so that the second House ends up just getting one document. So for example, if the House makes changes, then the bill becomes engrossed. So you might have seen like like the Senate makes changes, engrossed Senate substitute bill, 1645, and I'm just making that up. It'll all be just done into one document. So that's basically just to kind of consolidate and make things easier. Third reading is then the next step, and that's where the roll call vote on the final passage is taken. If the bill finally passes, it'll continue in the process. If it fails on final passage, it goes no further. Now, if amendments in the second House if amendments in the second House are returned to the first House with amendments attached, this is going to sound kind of confusing. So the first House can decide whether or not it wishes to agree with the changes the second House made. Leadership usually decides which bills returned from the second House will be discussed and then places those bills on the concurrence calendar in the House or the concurring calendar in the Senate. And again, I know all of this is a lot of information. There is documentation that goes into a lot more detail for everything that we're going to discuss tonight. So if you do miss something or something doesn't make sense, there will be stuff for you to review over that, that'll help you figure it all out. Okay. So we have another, so if the first house agrees with amendments, then the bill just passes. It's passed the legislature. But if the first house disagrees with the second house, they can ask the second house to recede from the amendments. So, and if the second house recedes from the amendments, then the bill ends up passing as well. If they can't resolve any of their differences, one of the houses can ask for a conference committee where members of each house meet and they'll discuss their differences. And then if they can agree on what can be done, a conference committee makes a report. But both houses must adopt the conference committee report for the bill to end up passing the legislature finally. So when the bill is accepted by both houses, it's signed by its respective leaders, and then it's sent to the governor. So the governor reviews the bill, and he can do several things. He can decide to sign it, he can veto part of it, or he can veto all of the bill. So if he vetoes part or all of the bill, the legislature actually may vote to override the veto, but this rarely happens. If the governor doesn't act on the bill, though, after a certain amount of days, it just goes into law as if it's actually signed. And then after that, it'll go to the Secretary of State, who then will assign it a session law number, which is basically how we get our CWs and all that. And then from there.
So Chanel, really quick, there's a question in the chat. So are the 4 bills, parenthesis, in the description of this event, including the one on childhood incarceration, considered to be in that category of bills Chanel mentioned that are considered fiscally significant? And then, does that make sense?
No, let me say that one more time. I'm sorry.
I think the question is, are the 4 bills that we are supporting or we want passed going to have a fiscal note?
I don't think so. Okay, so we have more than 4 bills I've left updated. So that's one thing we'll get to. Our legislative priorities have been updated because as we get closer to the start of session, more bills will be introduced. I believe as of right now, I don't think any of them do really have a fiscal note. There may be 1 or 2, but I don't know how specifically, but I can find out. But we have a lot of bills that are kind of on our priorities. So off the top of my head, I can't think of which ones have fiscal notes, but that's easy to find out. And I will show you actually how to figure that out.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. So to follow up, just some things to remember. If a bill doesn't make it all the way through during a regular session, like in an odd number year, so last year, any bills that were introduced last year that didn't make it through their respective chambers or get through to committee, it does not mean that they are dead. At the end of session, all the bills in the second house are returned to the first house. And then at the start of the next session, which would be this one, the next special session or the next regular session, bills that are from the previous session are reintroduced, and then they're back in their same present position. And so they can be carried over. Now I will say, if bills that were introduced in 2021 do not make it this year in 2022, then they are dead. And then they will you have to start all the way over again and reintroduce them. This is the end of our first little presentation that we have. Any questions before we move on to the next one? Because I'm actually doing a little better on time than I thought. And I'm gonna stop this just for a minute.
Chanel.
Yes.
I know we talked about a lot of bills last year. Did any of them die at the end of their second year, or are they all carryovers?
Pretty much all of the bills that we kind of talked about or discussed in the past with last year, they're still some either they passed or we're still trying to get them passed this year.
Okay, so they're still in that carryover.
Yep, we are. And again, we'll review them. I'm sure some of them are going to sound familiar to you because they're carried over from last year. There are some new ones that are being introduced. And then there's also some bills that aren't necessarily our priorities, but things I think we should look out for that kind of want to watch and make sure that they kind of don't pass because it could be detrimental to others. So I'm going to give everybody a 2-minute break because I just want to get the other presentation going. If you need to stretch your legs, actually we'll do 3 minutes and give you guys a chance to stretch your legs, do whatever to do, and I'm going to prepare the next slides. Virtual lobby visit. Virtual lobby visits, well, I'll just say this. Actually, let me start sharing so you can see the presentation actually. So virtual lobby visits are basically the same thing as a regular lobby visit. Because of COVID, we can't really get down there. And it actually has opened up the doors for more people to participate in the legislative process, if you think about it, because you don't have to worry about traveling to Olympia. You don't have to worry about parking, or, you can just do it right from the comfort of your own home. And I think it's actually a really good way that we should continue on doing this. It just makes the process a lot more inclusive. So like I was saying, virtual lobby visits are a great way to meet your legislator, to introduce yourself, to let them know that, you're one of their constituents, that you care, and that you are involved in the, civic engagement and the whole legislative process. Setting up a virtual lobby visit is basically the same as setting up a in-person visit, and it's no different, and it's really easy. So what you would want to do is you're going to want to call your lawmaker's office, explain to them who you are, what organization you're with. For us, it would be, Northwest Community Bail Fund, your constituent, and you'd like to meet with the senator or the representative to discuss their issue. Ask for an email address of who the meeting request should be sent to. And typically that's probably going to be their LA, their legislative assistant. And then you'll send a formal email requesting a meeting with the member of the legislator or their staff who handles the issue. Sometimes legislators are not going to be available to meet with everybody. So they have staff that pretty much handle certain things. There's, constituent services. There are people that, like if one of the legislators works on, just whatever committee stuff, like certain things like that, they have staff that do just different things. So I'll show you a sample as well of a letter or just a little template that you can use to set up a meeting. So make sure though that in the meeting, in the email, you're going to include how it's going to take place, whether you're using Zoom, Teams, Google Meets, whatever, and then the topic you'd like to cover. If you don't hear back in a few days, send a follow-up email or call the office again. If the member of the legislature is unavailable, like I said, always ask to meet with a staff member who works on the issue. There's always somebody who you at least can meet with or speak with within the legislator's office. So here's an example of the sample email. So, it would be, dear Representative Nobles, or excuse me, dear Senator Nobles, my name is Chanel Rhymes. I am a Northwest Community Bail Fund advocate and a constituent. Or basically, actually, it would start off going to the LA. So you could say a constituent of Senator Nobles, I'd like to request a virtual appointment with the senator on, April 3rd, and to talk about issues such as LFOs. If the senator is unavailable, I'd like to meet with the appropriate staff member who covers the issue. I can provide a Zoom link or conference call line for the meeting. Please let me know what technology your office prefers. I expect to be joined by X number of people. And that's if you ever want to have like a group meeting with a legislator, which is really good. Sometimes it's easier to have one. So then you just don't feel the pressure and there's somebody else there with you. Then you'll sign it, your name, and your contact information. So once you do have your visit scheduled, you're going to want to make sure you get prepped for the visit. You're going to share any type of briefing materials, such as like a one-pager or the actual bill documents, if there's already a bill available. You're going to hold a meeting in advance if you have people that are going to be meeting with you together. Like if you're meeting as a group, decide roles, responsibilities, like who's going to take notes, who's going to talk, any, certain points you want to make. And then, just making sure that you're prepared is the best type of lobby visit you can have. And it's not hard. It's not difficult. So once you're actually in the lobby visit with your senator, so you've got it, you've sent your email, they've responded back, you've scheduled the visit, now you're there. So of course, you're going to start the meeting with introducing yourself, your name, your organization, pronouns. After you talk about, your introduction, you're going to go right into what is the issue you came for and make the ask. They do not have a lot of time. Most of the time, these little visits, sometimes, especially on like a lobby day or a big day where there's lots of organizations going to try to be meet and scheduling appointments, you might get like 5 minutes, 7. It just really all depends. So, for example, like what you want the lawmaker to do. So like, I'd like you to vote yes on House Bill 1412. Or, I want you to speak out on the floor about this issue. Personal stories are the best way to drive, your message home. Legislators really do take those into consideration. It's actually helped some people, change their position, to be quite honest. There was a Republican legislator last year who so happened to see, there was a woman who participated in a focus group study on LFOs, and LFOs are legal financial obligations, fines and fees that people receive after a conviction. And she participated in this study, and then it was published in the paper. Well, a Republican representative seen it, and it was his cousin. And so because he didn't realize what his cousin had been going through and how, how burdensome LFOs are, he actually now has co-sponsored a bill to support that. So now he's on. So personal stories truly make a difference. I'm sure this will happen. If you get asked something that you don't know the answer to, don't worry. It's okay. You're not going to know everything. You can just simply say you don't know the answer. Don't make anything up. That's like the worst thing you can do. But, say you don't know, and then you can get back to them. And then that way there's no confusion. And then, it just, like it says, it keeps the relationship authentic and ongoing. And it's just the best way to do. Never answer something you don't know. So also during the visits, if there's questions that you have for the legislator, make sure you ask them too. Listen to the answers, make sure you're doing active listening. Here, try to pick up on what they're saying. Like if once you, explain your position or give your ask, what their response is, do they sound like they're for it? Do they sound like they need more information? Or are they completely against? Note any follow-up questions or materials that they would need. That could be like a one pager or just, like a link to a website of like, here, this is the Northwest Community Bail Fund. This is the work that they do. Anything like that. Also too, just kind of make sure to keep the conversation focused on your issue at hand. Sometimes staff or a lawmaker might bring up an issue or policy that could kind of veer your meeting off of what is kind of like 501c3 compliant. However, when I say that, I don't want folks to get like worried about like, oh my gosh, am I violating, 501c3 compliance? Because what we're doing right now is pretty much grassroots organizing. And I'm quite sure you'll all be well within the boundaries. I'm not really concerned that anybody will do that, but I just have to say it just in case. And then I actually, we have documentation and information too that we provide to you about what is kind of like 501c3 compliant, like what's the difference between advocacy and lobbying. And we'll share those with you as well. Also too, making sure when you're in a virtual lobby visit, because we're online and we're using computers, it's very easy to talk over folks. I'm sure you've had this happen in a Zoom meeting. So just be aware of that, be mindful, make sure you let people have a chance to, pause before starting to speak again. And just making sure you're listening. It's a little harder sometimes to read, body language cues. So just try to be aware as much as you can of just what's going on, and be mindful also too, just of language. So then at the end of your meeting, you're gonna, say thank you.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we had a question in the chat to go
Sure.
back to the lobbying versus advocacy piece, not to get too far ahead. What is an example of a non-compliance?
Yes, I will, because we're kind of crunched on time, we'll talk about that at the end, but we'll address that, I promise.
Thanks.
So again, like at the end of your meeting, you're going to say thank you. You'll reiterate any next steps. And, if there's any information that you said you would provide, let them know that you'll be following up. And then, you'll end your meeting. So remember, have fun though. Don't go into this thinking like this is some scary thing. These people are people just like you and I. They hold regular jobs. Most of them hold regular jobs during the day. But this is just also something that they do. They are a constituent. They are your fellow citizen. You're their constituents. They're a fellow citizen. Have fun. I mean, you're here to build relationships and let them know that, I really care about these issues, and I think you should too. Any more questions? The advocacy lobbying question is a really good one. We will cover that a little later. But before I move on, any more questions? Okay, we'll keep it going. So now we get to the part of where what some of you may have seen before on TV. We have our legislature video broadcasts all of our committee hearings. They broadcast the Supreme Court when they are in session. So some of you may have seen people like going before, a committee of folks or a committee of legislators and testify. And that's usually, they're testifying in committee. So you can either submit oral testimony, which would be physically, testifying right there in committee, or you can submit written testimony. So we'll go over both. But first, we're going to talk about submitting oral testimony on a bill. So as you all know, we're now in a position where we meet virtually for the session. You do have the opportunity to provide written testimony and state your position, but like I said, you can also do it virtually. So you can also do it in committee, or you can contact your legislator directly by writing a letter, sending an email, call their office, or you can call the legislative hotline. We've got documentation we've provided you that will link you to all of the phone numbers, every legislator's email, every legislator's address, every legislator's phone number, and also link you to a tool where you can put your address in and find out what your legislative district is, as well as what your congressional district is. And congressional would be your federal district when talking about the federal government. Washington has one of the most open legislatures in the country. A bill gets a public hearing in the Senate and the House and committees before being considered on the floor of the House and the Senate. Legislative hearings are conducted pretty informally. The rules are somewhat relaxed, but they're intended to help, keep decorum and allow respectful and courteous debate. Anybody can testify. You don't need formal training. The first time I ever testified in committee was probably in 2014, I believe it was. I was nervous because you do know you're going to be on TV, but once you get it done, you feel great. It's really powerful also to just be a part of that process. Before the hearing, you're going to want to prepare your remarks. Your time is super, super limited when you're in committee. It's even less than when you're meeting with the legislator one-on-one. Make sure you have stuff written down in an outline form, summarize your testimony. Trying to testify with written paragraphs can sometimes, for some folks, that might be how you have to do it, but it comes across more authentic and just, if you're just speaking your points, kind of going off the cuff. But I totally get some people have to, do paragraph form and just read like that. If you are testifying and like you go as like a group or like there's an organization, make sure that you kind of coordinate with others what your testimony would be. You want to avoid duplication in testimony. If two of you have a similar story, one of y'all should just say it. The other one should talk about something else, other talking points. The more organized your testimony is, it's just way more effective. Of course, beyond time, there's usually only one public hearing, which testimony is taken on a bill. So if you miss it, that's, you miss it, but it's okay. You'll sign in electronically, then you'll receive an individual link to the virtual meeting after you sign in. And this is kind of what it'll look like here. So you'll go to the legislature website, and then you can click on, when you want to register to testify remotely. You'll decide, you'll click in between which one is it, either House, Senate, or like a joint legislative committee. You'll then select the committee here, and then you'll select whichever meeting it is. And then on this one here, you'll be able to determine which type of testimony you would like. So either it's going to be like, I want to testify virtually remotely, or I'd like to submit written testimony. So it's only showing one of those, but you'll have two different choices. So be present at the beginning of the hearing, at least for your first one, because you'll kind of want to see the formality of it and how it goes. Like if you arrive a little early, you'll see legislative staff off to the side. This is, and actually, let me back up. This is if we were in person. You might be able to see it sometimes on camera now that we are virtual. It just depends on when they actually turn the cameras on in the committee, in the hearing room. But if we were in person, you would see legislative staff off to the side, gathering papers, getting final reports, just getting things together. And then, you will see representative legislators trickling in over time. And then finally, the hearing will begin. Typically, the opening comments are made, like once a bill is heard, the opening comments will be made by the bill sponsor or by committee staff. A lot of times it's going to be committee staff that will read it first. They'll read, like the bill number, sponsor, like all the basics that were included on like that bill report, like a summary. And so they'll read that. Then the chair will organize the hearing to make sure that, all the committee members hear all of the relevant information they need to hear. Committee members will they might ask questions, or they might need, follow-up information, or they might interject about, I heard this, and then, the other person, committee staff, is going to have to say, I'm going to find that out for you. Did we have another question?
I'll just be supervising them. And the goal also is to...
so then after that, that's when people will start to testify. So people that are interested in the bill will have the opportunity to express their opinions. I think it's usually, you might have about 2 minutes to testify. To be quite honest, I can't remember off the top of my head. The hearing will not exceed the time available. I will say that. So, when you go to make your remarks, again, introduce yourself to the chairs of the committee. And how you'll do that is, Mr. or Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Chanel Rhymes. I'm from University Place. I live in the 28th Legislative District. I'm here representing myself I'm here representing the Northwest Community Bail Fund. I support this bill because, and then you go into, whatever your reasoning is, why you are in favor, or I am against this bill because, make it clear to whether you're representing yourself or a group of other citizens. If you are formerly incarcerated, you want to make sure you include that in there. Let them know I'm speaking from a position of, I have full knowledge of what this legislation will do. Or, if it's about juveniles, children, if you were a parent, you are speaking as a parent of, X, Y, and Z. Be brief. Sorry about that. All right. Be brief. Make sure your remarks are clear. Try not to get too technical. try not to repeat any previous remarks that were made. Don't worry about being nervous. I know people saying that is like, okay, don't be nervous, but it happens. Don't worry. You're going to get it over with. Nothing's going to happen to you. Nobody's going to laugh at you. I'll say that. You'll be fine. But 2, be prepared for questions at the end. A lot of times, depending on the issue, members of the committee will ask you questions, especially if you've decided to share a personal story or you are coming in representing like an organization. They may have questions for you. My first time testifying in committee was for Motor Voter to get 16 and 17-year-olds pre-licensed or pre-registered to vote. So when they would go and take their driver's test, they check a box, they'd be registered to vote. Once they turn 18, they would be automatically registered. I had committee members asking me, what was my first time to vote? Well, I was significantly older than most of the people in there. I have returned to college later in life. And so I was like, well, my first election was 2000. And so it kind of blew them away that I was, this, how old I was, I guess, that I had been voting. I'm like, I've been voting for 15 years. So I do know a little bit about voting. And then sometimes there may not be questions. They might just say, thank you for your testimony. And then you'll move on. I've noticed a lot of times now that we're virtual, you're not going to get as many questions because there are so many people that are logging on or want to get a chance to testify. A lot of times groups will collaborate so that, if it's because it's going to be, just like we are an organization that cares about criminal justice reform, as many of you know, there's other organizations out there. We're all fighting the same fight. So what sometimes people will do is just, you're going to have one representative from your organization and one from our organization, and then we're going to testify that way. So it's just so that the points can get to who they need to get to. You can let the members know that you will send them written answers to any questions that they have, and then follow through if it, goes on too long or you don't have time. No demonstrations, clapping, just try to keep it pretty, you're there to talk about the issue at hand, and that's it. Most committee hearings are about 2 hours and have more than one bill pending, or more than one matter. They might also have an executive session they might have to get to or something like that. The chair usually attempts to try to get everybody on, but sometimes it just isn't possible. Or they might have to restrict testimony because it's something so controversial that so many people have decided to, log on to give their opinions, and you can't testify, but that is okay because you have 24 hours to submit written testimony from the start of a hearing. And that's where we're going to go into how to submit written testimony. And before I do move on, any more questions? We're good? Okay.
One question, Chanel. Can we observe hearings without testifying?
Absolutely. Yes, you can. The best way to do that actually is through TVW. So rather than going through the legislature website and the whole testimony, signing in to the committee, you can actually just view on TVW and view it from there. And all committee hearings are held and ran on there. You can also view the floor, like when members of the House or the Senate are on the floor, you can watch the floor vote go on too as well. TVW holds everything. And I think it's a really cool, vital thing that we have, because not everybody has that. I mean, it's basically our version of C-SPAN.
Is TVW online, like an online?
It is actually, yeah, it's online. And I think it used to be, forgive me. Uh-oh, I stopped sharing. Okay, what happened? Sorry. TVW, I believe it was on a channel. I haven't had cable in I don't know how many years, so I don't know. But they did used to be a channel, but you can watch it online. It's streaming online, and it's, I think it's tvw.wa.gov. I will double check for you guys though. Hold on. Huh. Okay.
We have another question.
Yeah, go ahead while I get caught up.
The hearing process only happens between February and March. Or does the hearing process only happen?
No. So actually there are Senate hearings already scheduled. Like right now, like they have a draft schedule out right now that are like the session starts on January 10th. So there's hearings scheduled on January 10th. Okay. There we go. Yeah. So it goes immediately. They start it right then and there. The ball gets rolling. It's on.
Cool.
All right, let's get back.
It looks like it's just tvw.org for anyone.
Okay, .org. Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, you have 24 hours from the time of a committee hearing to submit written testimony. You can email it directly to all the committee members and the committee chair, or you can send it to the chair's LA. You can also send it to committee staff as an alternative. And then this information of where you can, a list of committee chairs and all that can be found there, which is provided on another document that we have for you. So it's just a PDF, but there's a link in there. You click that and it'll take you to see all the list of all the chairs of committees. So like I was saying, session begins on Monday, the 10th. You can stay updated on legislation and legislative hearings through the Ledge website, our new public calendar, which I'll be showing you guys, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And yeah, that's kind of all we got for Write This. But there are some other things that I'd like to share with folks. But before I do that, any questions? Because it's like we kind of went through that a little faster than I thought. I know I was talking kind of fast. Please let me know. I see a hand, Jesse.
So I was just wondering if you had any general advice for like, I don't know if it would just be for healthcare workers or some, like if you work for an institution where you want to like share what you do, but you maybe work for a regressive institution or something that it's probably not smart to share your affiliation. Like, do you have any general recommendations for like how to establish quickly that you like know what you're talking about? You've thought about this. Does that make sense?
Yes. And in a way there's a document that if you didn't get it, we'll resend them out again, but they're also on our website of like how to do like hard questions and pivoting, like how to answer those things. I think the best thing, number one, is like stick to facts. Typically, if there's a certain issue that you're concerned about, some organization has created what we call in the legislative process, a one-pager about it. And what a one-pager is something like if you were to have an in-person meeting with a legislator about a specific issue, you would go in with a one-pager. It's going to have the bill number, the sponsor, what it is, basically summary of like what this bill does or what changes it makes so that it can be read quickly. And I think that the best thing, what I would suggest is like, researching online, like any of these organizations that are advocating for this or whatever your issue is. And then they've got talking points already on it. I mean,
and that one pager is public
that works in healthcare and you're talking about a healthcare issue. Why not? Would we not listen? You literally work there.
Yeah, no, there's like reasons, but I
understand.
I appreciate it. Yep.
Any other questions? No? Okay. I'm really excited. So we recently, once I decided to do all this, I was thinking to myself, like, it can't just be a one-time thing. We have to have some sort of way so that folks can come and find this information, on a continuous basis. And so we have recently updated our website. Under our Get Involved section, we have a whole new advocate page. And so I want to show y'all and direct you to some of the new information we have. Can everybody see are they seeing Bail Fund website?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So under our Get Involved, we now have an events section, and that is going to be our public calendar. So what we will use this public calendar for is to just put any and everything that we think that goes with our message or whatever we're trying to do on this calendar. I will also put legislative hearings for only committees that bills we would potentially be interested in would be heard in. So for right now, like, for example, the Senate Law and Justice Committee is meeting on Tuesday, the 11th at 10:30, already on there. There's another Washington Housing Justice Coalition is doing an advocacy workshop. They are doing a training on how to advocate for housing justice for the upcoming housing justice bill that's going to be coming out. We also have, there's another event that I'll talk about that's in February that we're going to ask you guys to participate in. And then also under the Get Involved is our new advocate page. So everything that we talked about today is on this page, but in more detail. You can come to our website here, and every slide that you basically saw was created and put into kind of like a PDF. So for example, on the How a Bill Becomes a Law, you open it up and it's a longer, more detailed, in-depth of how the legislative process works, how a bill becomes a law. It's a lot. And then I also included on there, let's just go to the last 2 pages, on how to read a bill. Because I know a lot of folks, like, you'll see it and it's like, this is crazy. I don't know what this means. Like, what is this jumbled word salad on a page? And so these are really good instructions and kind of breaks it down on like what all this stuff means, how to read a bill. And then it also goes into like terms and definitions. Then let's see, lobbying versus advocating versus lobbying. Got a whole section of that right here too. So for those of you that had questions about advocacy versus lobbying, come here, come to the website, read this over. It goes into, what's the difference, and really good explanation. And then we also have, like I was saying before, these are going to be a list of all of the standing House and Senate committees. It's just a brief description of typically like what all these committees do. So, appropriations, capital budget, children, youth and families, judiciary, and we've included both House and Senate as well. And everything is you can download it yourself, download it to your computer or just read it here online. Same deal. This one, the Let Your Voice Be Heard, is going to be a hyperlinks to get you to where you need to go within the legislature's website. It can be a little hard to navigate. So what I did was I pulled everything in links to everywhere you needed to find to go on the website. All you got to do is come here, you click it, it'll take you there. So
one question now, for HB versus SB, if it says SB, does that mean it already passed the House, or how?
And so you said HB, SB, when it has SB, has it already passed the House?
Basically, how does it, why would a bill be called HB like 3 numbers versus SB 3 numbers?
So HB means House bill, SB is Senate bill. And then there's sometimes you may see it where it'd be like Senate, or it'd be like SSB, so Senate substitute bill. So that would mean there had been some amendments or changes made. And so now we've got it's been relabeled. Does that make sense?
how is it decided that it's going to be called HB or SB? Is it that it's whatever?
It depends on the chamber that it's introduced in. So if a representative introduces a bill, it's going to be HB. If a senator introduces a bill, it's going to be SB.
Got it. Thank you.
So again, this document here will take you to wherever you need it to go. If you wanted to email the members individually, you can click this link, it'll take you there. You want to submit written testimony, it'll take you directly to these links. If you want to track bills, you can do that. You will have to create your own account, but there's a bill tracker. Then, I mean, if you wanted to find their rosters, address, everything you need to find, like anything on the website, on the legislature's website is here, because I just figured I'd do that because it's just a lot easier to navigate. But I will say though, once you do have some time, go on there and familiarize yourself with it, because there's a lot of information on there that I think people just don't realize. There's a whole just like legislative like history session of like, it just explains a lot of stuff, like why are things the way that they are. Oh my gosh, why does this keep doing this? People are sending me emails. Why? Sorry. Okay.
Janelle, I want to be cognizant of the time. Are we going to have a chance to get through the legislative priorities?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're at 7:10. Oh yeah. Well, I'm almost done here. We
Thanks.
got it. Lastly, I wanted to share too. So if you do happen to schedule a lobby visit, or you end up being able to testify in committee, we'd like to track that. So we're asking that you do come onto our website here after you've scheduled a lobby visit and fill out our virtual lobby visit tracker. And it's just pretty simple information: email, name, who you have the visit with, is it a member or is it a staff, and then the bill number you're talking about, the date, and if there is a conference call line or a Zoom link that you share it with us in case perhaps one of us or myself could go and be there with you talking. The committee testimony tracker is almost the same, except for on the committee testimony tracker, if you do submit either oral or written testimony, we would ask that you upload a copy of your testimony here so that we can also keep track of that. It's just to be a good way for us to know who's talking to who and what legislators are getting our message. And then this below is just a little bit about COVID and about COVID in jails and reaching out to local officials about, reducing our jail numbers, and also a sample letter of like what you can say. So we've got, Seattle City Council, Mayor, King County Sheriff, Jail Services, Health, all those people right there so that you can email them. And then, of course, to Court Watch, links to Court Watch and how to volunteer. So before I move on to legislative priorities, any questions? Nope. Okay.
No question, Chanel, but these pages are amazing.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so legislative priorities. If you received the original documents, I've added some since then, and then actually the eliminate parent pay bill got a bill number. Previously, before in the old version, if you have it, there was no bill number assigned. That recently just got added. So that one is actually now SB 5535. I'll explain what that is, but let me start back up at the top. So first bill that is on our legislative priorities is going to be House Bill 1169, and that's concerning sentencing enhancements. Sentencing enhancements typically disproportionately affect people of color, young African American men, young Black and brown men, basically. Any crime that like your commits with a gun is going to add another automatic 5 years. Or if you, commit a crime within a certain area of a protected zone. And what a protected zone is a, within a certain amount of school, private or public school. I think it's like 800 80 feet or something like that. So what this would do is it's going to eliminate the sentencing enhancements for certain controlled substance violations in the protected zones, as well as sentencing enhancements for involving a minor in a criminal street gang related felony. So that's another two. They have gang enhancements that they can add on to your sentence. If any of you participated in the film screening, these are the reasons why a lot of those people were serving, decades or 100-year sentences, is because of these sentencing enhancements. It also provides for a process for resentencing people who were currently serving a sentence that included multiple consecutive fire harm enhancements. So two, they stack those on top of each other and you have to do them. You can't serve the time all at once. You got to do it on, after. And so that's what keeps people incarcerated a lot longer. It also removed the current law restrictions on partial confinement and earned release for sentencing enhancements. And as soon as all of these, just to FYI, as soon as all of these bills get hearings, which I will be tracking, they will be on the public calendar. So just like I said, continue to check that. House Bill 1344 is going to allow certain people serving long sentences that were committed prior to reaching 25. So anybody that was basically under 25 to seek review for a possible release. We have a lot of young people that did stuff when they were kids. And as we all know, their brains aren't fully developed, but they're being held accountable as if they were adults and serving these long sentences. So what this would do is would allow for an incarcerated person who committed offense under 25 to petition the Indeterminate Sentencing Review Board for release if they've served 15 years, some exceptions. It also eliminates the sentence of life without the possibility of release for aggravated murder in the first degree if it was committed between the ages of 16 and 25. Also requires a sentence of 25 years to life with a review for early release by the Indeterminate Sentencing Review Board after serving 25 years for anyone who commits the offense between the age of 16 and 25. Of course, House Bill 1412, I'm sure many
Before you move on, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
One question, did the sentencing enhancements come after / as a result of 3 strikes was enacted in Washington, or did sentencing enhancements predate 3 strikes?
I think they all came around about the same together. I feel like some attorney, Jamie, somebody, I'll say this, Washington was the first person to do 3 strikes. A lot of states modeled their legislation after ours. So we are the people, we did this. We started all the whole 3 strikes you're out thing. Did somebody answer? I thought I heard somebody say.
Ardell, was that you?
Yeah, it predates. That was part of the 1991 Sentence Reform Act with the enhancements. They did enhancements for if you were close to a school and you sold drugs, firearms, and other acts like that. There was an enhancement added on to them. So that was before 3 strikes came out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
House Bill 1412, many of you should be already familiar. If you've been working with the bail fund for a long time, you're familiar with this. It's legal financial obligations. What this bill is going to do is kind of pass all the other stuff that we didn't get before. It's going to deal with restitution. It's going to deal, there's a lot of folks that owe restitution to an entity, rather than a person. A lot of times people think restitution is going to, victims or somebody that suffered something. A lot of times restitution is going to an insurance company or, an entity or a state agency. There have been people that owe restitution, say to L&I for an overpayment, or they fraudulently got overpaid for L&I or for unemployment, or an insurance company where if there was some sort of theft or robbery or something, and then the victim, filed an insurance claim and the insurance paid that, then restitution would basically be owed to them. And right now there is no relief for people who owe restitution to those entities. And what we're kind of the reason we want this passed is because it's they've been made whole. The whole purpose of having insurance anyway is to cover those types of things. So that's one of the things it does. It also allows the court to not impose interest on restitution. That also revises kind of the time periods for which judgments for restitution and non-restitution may be enforced. It'll establish and revise standard of indigency. Indigency meaning a person is deemed, and that's a whole deal. We have a whole RCW that determines what makes somebody indigent, but for layman's terms, it's like people that live like poverty level, anybody that's receiving any type of state benefits, whether that be food stamps, Medicaid, even childcare, a childcare subsidy from the state, that you're deemed indigent. Let's see. Also allows defendants at a time to petition the sentencing court for remission of the payment. It'll basically allow people like after a certain time to say like, look, I can't never pay this. And this is creating a financial hardship. I cannot move on with my life. I can't do anything. They can petition the court to ask that payments be wiped out. 1413 is scoring of prior juvenile offenses and sentencing range calculations. It'll exclude juvenile dispositions from offender score calculations. So when folks are convicted, if you have a prior conviction, you have a certain amount of points. And so when those points start adding up, that kind of just also determines like how much time you're going to end up serving. So basically what this does is it makes it so that kids, what they did in their youth doesn't count against them as adults. SB 5036 is concerning conditional commutation by the Clemency and Pardons Board. So it expands and modifies the membership of the Clemency and Pardons Board, and then establishes a process for qualifying individuals to petition the Clemency and Pardons Board for conditional commutations. So too, what a commutation is basically, or wait, Molly, did you put in the chat? I forgot.
I did, yeah.
Molly and I had this thing worked out. She was going to put certain definitions in the chat, and I forgot I gave her the definitions to do that. So y'all can see in the chat. So a commutation is a sentence or conditional commutation is a sentence that is dependent on compliance. And so like you basically can have your sentence commuted. It doesn't mean that your conviction goes away, but that, the governor says we'll release you. But a lot of times it's conditional with certain conditions. You know what, to speed it up though, I'm going to try to hit just the main points of everything.
We have a question about,
oh yeah, go ahead.
We have a question about the scoring. The question is, how are the points determined? Are they subjective, or are they given by degrees of crime, or how is those scores?
That's actually a real legal question. I don't know exactly how the scoring is done. That's more criminal law. But I can find out for you what the actual formula is. I feel like somebody's going to tell me. No, okay. Okay. Where are we at?
Lauren, thank you. She says points are calculated through sentencing.
Sorry. Yeah, I can chime in. Like I helped Chelsea kind of like go through that bill, and basically points are calculated through like your juvenile offenses and like the adult offenses, and every time, and depending on the severity of each one, they all add up to each conviction. And so then they're all cumulative and come together in the end.
I guess, yeah, to answer the original question, no, they're not. So it is assigned to the degrees of the crime. Yes. But yeah, and thank you, Lauren, to follow up too. Okay, where are we at? Solitary confinement. Basically, so restricts the HB 1312 and 5413. Will restrict the use of solitary confinement in our correctional facilities, except in certain circumstances. Requires the Department of Corrections to adopt certain regulations, policies, and procedures. Direct cities and counties to operate jails in compliance with specific information on the use of solitary confinement at each jail, and submit to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police, which is, and then it also requires the WASPIC to submit both an internal and updated report to the legislature. That's actually really huge because we don't track enough data. We don't have enough data in the state about what we are doing to people in incarceration. Okay, I'm gonna keep speeding through. We're almost done. HB 1637. It's going to basically allow the court to mitigate whether somebody was suffering a mental health, experiencing mental health illness at the time of their offense, which we all know a lot of times mental health is what can lead people into incarceration. So this is also something that we really want to help, we want passed. 1692 is going to be promoting racial equity in the criminal legal system by eliminating the drive-by shooting as a basis for elevating murder in the first degree to aggravated murder first degree. This disproportionately affects Black and Brown youth. And if you saw Since I've Been Down, you will know why it's so important that we pass this legislation. Juvenile LFO bill, parent pay, this was actually, and DCYF stands for Department of Children, Youth and Families. DCYF actually requested this bill. Right now, if a juvenile is incarcerated, the parent has to pay for it. And a lot of times that's folks that are already disproportionately people of color, low income, and they just really can't afford it. And so actually DCYF has requested this bill. So usually, typically when an agency requests the bill, it is, it has a better chance of passing because it's like the agency saying like, we need to change this. We need a policy change here. And then lastly is the Housing Justice Act. So basically what this would do is address housing concerns for folks that have been impacted by the criminal justice system. Right now, people that have a criminal conviction can be discriminated against for housing. It is extremely hard once you have a criminal conviction to be housed here in the state of Washington. And so we are trying to change that and also change some of the workarounds that we've been noticing happening through the use of like Zillow and Trulia. So kind of honing those folks into with what they're doing. And with the last 6 minutes, I am done and I will turn it over to y'all for any questions. And then Becky and Molly, if you want to do any updates as well or final closing remarks, because that is pretty much it on our end. Please check out our page. It's really, we put a lot of work into it and we're really proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chanel. That was great. Yeah, I definitely want to open it up and see if anybody has any other questions. I know we were trying to address them as we went, so I want to make sure though that anybody who has any lingering questions gets those answered. And just a reminder, all of that is on the website, including the legislative priorities, so you can read those at your leisure. And we will keep the calendar updated so that you can see what you need to see there. I have a question. So these are bills that the Bail Fund supports. Yeah, these are the bills that we are kind of focusing on hoping to get through the legislature because they have an effect on the whole system, right? I mean, I know that we as an organization are focused on the pretrial space, what bail does and what wealth-based detention means for people. But people are held for a variety of reasons, most of them heavily influenced by race, and many of them, most of them heavily influenced by our capitalistic wealth-based society. So this affects all of the whole ecosystem that we work within.
Answered Tim's question, yes. There are two bills that I actually recently found. One, let me get you the correct bill number. It is.
So the question being, are there bills that we oppose? And while Chanel's looking that up, I just want to kind of go into, we did have a screening of Since I've Been Down. We do have the film.
Oh, I was going to talk about that too.
Producer
Sorry.
here. A lot of these bills are sort of tied to the issues that were highlighted in that film. So I don't know if you want to speak more specifically to that, Chanel.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that as well. Quickly though, for Tim, your question. Two bills that we oppose. One of them is 1656, House Bill 1656, and that's the changing of the definition of theft. And then also House Bill 1678, and that's going to create a domestic violence offender registry. no bueno.
Can we get some information of those up on the website in the next week or so?
Yeah, I will. I'll try to get some info up on that to and update the legislative priorities. I got to find more. We just discovered it. So the formerly incarcerated legislative caucus just made everyone aware that these two bills were introduced, kind of got slipped in there. And so, yeah, but we'll be sure to make sure that the folks are updated. So to touch on too, so last month we did a film screening and discussion of the movie Since I've Been Down, which was directed by our board member, Dr. Gilder Shepard. It basically spotlights several folks from the Tacoma Hilltop area who were incarcerated back in the 90s here. And after folks got to view the film, we were able to have one of the men that was featured in the spotlighted in the film, Kamonte Carter, call in to the discussion. He is currently still incarcerated. And then we also had Tanya Wilson, who was another woman who was incarcerated and featured in the film as part of the discussion. Thanks, Molly. The discussion is up on our YouTube page, so you can link to that. But I also am going to be sending an email out to all of you. Kamonte was recently granted a hearing on March 22nd, and he needs letters of support. So we have a copy of a sample letter and just some information, a background on Kamonte that we're going to be sending out to all of you and asking that you can write a letter of support to Kamonte. He's currently serving a life with no parole, all because of basically like these enhancements and an unjust system. I highly encourage, if you see a screening again of Since I've Been Down, that you please view this film. It is so, for me, it really is just representative of what I saw here in Tacoma growing up. And it really captures like what people went through and how, communities were just gutted of their people and people were taken away. So please be on the lookout for that. It'll have all the information in there, sample letter, where to send it, and instructions on how to do all that. And I think, Dr. Shepard is here. So we are so appreciative that she is on our board and that she allowed us to show the film, because it was a really awesome discussion. So please too, check out the discussion if you have a chance. Okay, I think, yep. And that is all I got. Sorry, Becky, you go ahead right on.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say, so like the enhancements that we saw highlighted in that film for Kamonte had to do with the, being sentenced as an adult when the crime happens when you were a teenager, having a quote unquote gang related enhancement from based on shooting out of a car versus shooting when you're not in a car. Like that's some major difference in how a shooting takes place. Just so many different things that are on this legislative agenda that we saw highlighted in that just kind of give you a really good sense of why we want to push for these changes and in the way that our laws work. And also something that maybe not everyone in the room is aware of is that Washington State doesn't have a parole system. So your choice is to serve your whole system out or get clemency. You don't have an in-between choice here in Washington State.
Thank you for adding that. Yeah, that's very key, which I think a lot of people don't realize, especially too with our propaganda. Most of us think we know a lot of what stuff is going on because of law and order or whatever else, but like parole, we don't have that here. It just doesn't exist. How can we watch the film? If you reach out to Molly, help me out.
Yeah, I can put it in the chat.
Okay. Molly is on it and we appreciate her. Okay, we're 2 minutes over. Any other questions? I know I kind of went through this fast, but take some time, review the website. It's a lot more detailed. We'll get legislative hearings up as they come out. Sadly, our House of Representatives are very slow with getting their schedule up. Senate's got theirs.
Janelle, what's the best way people can reach you if they have more questions?
Please email me. email me c.rhymes@nwcombailfund.org. Also, if you need to find my email address, it is on the advocate page. So get involved, advocate, and then my email is at the bottom. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate this. This is one of my passions. I love policy and legislation and making change. Because to be quite honest, almost all of those bills either affect me personally or a relative of mine. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the work that you do for us, and we are so grateful.
Thank you.
Absolutely.